welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. I'm Juliet the daughter.
And that must make me Kevin the dad.
And this week we're doing a bit of a tribute episode to Charlie Watts because we are covering the Rolling Stones album Tattoo You. So...
Tattoo me? No, tattoo
you. So our introduction this week is going to be a little bit different because it's a tribute album. So Dad, what do we need to know about Charlie Watts and his legacy as a drummer?
Okay, Charles Robert Watts was born in Bloomsbury, London on June 2nd, 1941. His father, Charles Richard Watts, was a lorry driver. That's a truck driver in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother, Lillian Charlotte, was a factory worker. As a kid, he became friends with a neighbor, Dave Green, who went on to become a jazz bassist. They remained lifelong friends. As kids, they discovered 78 RPM jazz records and collected and collected. Charlie became interested in drums at age 13 when he heard jazz drummer Chico Hamilton play, and he wanted to play just like that. His parents got him his first real kit in 1955. Charlie would practice along to jazz records. After completing secondary school, he enrolled at the Harrow Art School until 1960. He went on to become a graphic designer for an advertising company called the Charlie Daniels Studios.
Oh.
And no, not that Charlie Daniels.
He wasn't in the Absolute Beginners movie by any chance, was he?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because that would fit.
He would play drums occasionally with local bands in coffee shops and clubs. Charlie found the transition from playing jazz to R&B puzzling. When they asked me to play, I didn't know what it was. I thought it meant Charlie Parker played slow. In 1961, Charlie met British blues musician Alexis Corner, who invited him to join his band, Blues Incorporated. Charlie was on his way to a working sojourn in Denmark as a graphic designer, but accepted Corner's offer when he came back in February '62. He played regularly with Blues Incorporated, while also working for the advertising firm Charles Hobson & Gray. In mid-1962, Charlie met Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, and Ian Stewart, who frequented the same R&B clubs as Charlie, but he did not join their band called the Rolling Stones until January 1963.
Oh.
Keith said something to the effect that Charlie was priced out of the Stones' range. They had to shoplift and do whatever it took to pay Charlie £5 a week.
Oh.
Charlie didn't think the band would last a year. But here we are, almost 60 years later.
God.
Charlie, along with Mick and Keith, has been the only member of the Stones to play on every single studio album. At the beginning of August 2021, Charlie opted out of the Stones' U.S. No Filter tour due to a medical procedure involving his heart.
Ooh.
Steve Jordan would fill in for the rest of the tour, which is scheduled to wrap up in November. Now, going back some, Charlie married Shirley Shepard on October 14th, 1964, and they stayed married until his death in August.
Aww.
He was always faithful.
Good!
They had one daughter, Seraphina, in 1968,
Oh, that's beautiful.
and she in turn gave Charlie his only grandchild, Charlotte.
Aww.
When the Stones were on tour, Charlie would go back to his hotel room after the show and draw a picture of his room.
Oh, that's a creative way to spend your time.
He started doing that in 1967 and filled over a dozen books with these pictures.
Oh, did he ever sell any of them, or did the family keep them?
Don't know. Don't know. Maybe eventually they'll be compiled into one collection.
Okay.
He also wrote a children's book about Charlie Parker back in 1965 called Ode to a High-Flying Bird.
Was it any good?
Don't know. It's been long out of print,
Oh.
but maybe that will change. Maybe they'll bring it back in print, but it's like it goes for hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars online.
Well, if it ever comes to Weaver Library one day, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Charlie also used his graphic designer skills to design some of the Stones' album covers, such as Between the Buttons. He also designed some of the stages for their tours. He also released albums under the Charlie Watts Orchestra, the Charlie Watts Quintet, and the Charlie Watts Tentet, where he was able to get his jazz and big band freak on.
Did critics like those?
Don't know.
Oh.
As for his kit setup, Charlie Watts kept it simple. A snare, a kick drum, a floor tom, and one rack time, plus hi-hat, ride, and crash cymbals. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, he kept it simple, which is tough. Like Keith said, an electric guitar can hide a lot of mistakes, but playing acoustic would always find you out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the same with drums. You can have an 87-piece kit and hide your mistakes, but playing a 4-piece is going to expose you.
Yeah, and if you suck, then everyone's really going to hear it.
Yeah, it'll be obvious. He also never did drum solos. And there are some Stone songs on which he did not play.
Really?
Yeah, I knew there was You Can't Always Get What You Want was one of them. That's producer Jimmy Miller. But Miller also played drums on Happy and Shine a Light, both from Exile on Main Street.
What was the reason for that?
I know for You Can't Always Get What You Want, Charlie actually had trouble trying to find the right pattern for the song.
So if he had to play that song on tour, what happened?
Obviously, he had to learn it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, Kenny Jones plays drums on It's Only Rock and Roll. Charlie could not be reached for recording a demo, so Ron Wood called his old Faces bandmate Jones to play. The band then recorded with Charlie, but then they opted to use the demo. Jones phoned Charlie, who said, "That's okay, it sounds like me anyway."
Oh.
Now, Charlie collected cars, even though he never learned to drive.
Oh, it's like that thing of like wanting what you can't have kind of thing.
Well, he just liked cars, and he just kept them in his garage. Would go out and look at them. Yeah, they're really nice.
So did they rust and like deteriorate?
I'm sure he must have kept them in good condition.
Okay, because I was about to say, if they're just sitting there, ugh.
He also had over 200 suits
Ooh.
and made it onto numerous best-dressed men's lists, including the 2006 International Best Dress Hall of Fame.
Take that, Mick.
And yes, that really does exist.
Oh, cool.
Unfortunately, Charlie also went through a period of addiction in the mid-1980s. His midlife crisis, I guess. Everyone else got it out of the way in their 20s, but he waited a little later. He said his heroin addiction was so bad, even Keith Richards had to tell Charlie he needed to check himself.
Wow, you know you've really screwed up when Keith is saying,
Yeah,
hey, maybe lay off a little bit.
That's bad.
And it's like he's done everything.
And Charlie eventually kicked going cold turkey.
Good for him. That's hard, especially for heroin.
Now, during this time, it led to a story that's been told over and over and over since he died. And I'm going to tell it again, and I had told it when I gave that drum lecture a couple of years back.
I love this story.
One night, Mick called Charlie in a drunken kind of rant in the middle of the night, wanting to know, "Where's my drummer?" So Charlie got up, got dressed very nicely in a suit, went down to Mick's room and knocked on the door. Mick answers it, and Charlie clocks him one and says, "Don't ever call me your drummer again. You're my fucking singer."
Oh, so good.
And overall, he was never really impressed with the whole rock and roll lifestyle, so much so that he sat out the Hall of Fame induction.
Really?
Yeah, if anything, he was bemused by it all.
Oh, like, wow, this is something.
Yeah, and when during their 25th anniversary, he said he felt it was 5 years of playing with 20 years of hanging around, which kind of makes sense.
At least he's honest.
Yeah.
I don't think the other members of the band would say that.
Yep. And he said that he couldn't believe he'd be spending 40 plus years following Mick Jagger's butt. And in fact, if you watch Martin Scorsese's Stones documentary, Shine a Light.
He did one on the Stones?
Yep.
Oh.
I believe it was back in 2006. You get to see the band perform Jumpin' Jack Flash from Charlie's point of view. And it's fascinating to watch. It's like you feel like you're at the drum set, and all you see is the back of everyone and the massive audience.
So where did they put the camera if he's playing? Did they...
They put it behind him, but then they'd also like go shoot to the side and like go around.
Oh, okay.
But most of it, they kind of made it look like it's over his shoulder, and it's just a fascinating view. And now he's gone, and it will be interesting to see what Mick and Keith and Ron do next, because Keith has constantly said without Charlie there would be no Stones. And Ron Wood has said, "Charlie's the engine. We don't go anywhere without Charlie."
What has Mick said?
Nothing yet. Now, as for me, I discovered the Stones in 1980 at the very late age of 17 while listening to, of all things, Casey Kasem's American Top 40.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, for some reason, he had played Jumpin' Jack Flash, and I had never heard the song before.
Really?
Yes, really. And I'd never heard anything like it. And my reaction was, where do I get more of this? And how do I get more of this?
Oh, like an addict.
So, yeah, I wound up getting Hot Rocks on cassette. And someone gave me Tattoo You on cassette as well. But I can't remember who that was. I just know that I wound up with it on cassette tape.
Thank you, mysterious person, whoever you are.
And eventually I got both remastered editions of Hot Rocks and more Hot Rocks on CD, as well as their Jump Back best of. And I also got remasters of Exile on Main Street and Tattoo You. And I know, how dare I not have more studio albums by the self-proclaimed world's greatest rock and roll band. Well, I've always looked at them as the world's greatest singles rock band, having 100 plus songs of theirs on my iPod.
Man, maybe both of us are going to piss off the Stones fans today.
I'm sure we probably will. But I also went online and ordered from the library Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, and Sticky Fingers. So I got to be picking those up at the library in a couple of days.
Okay.
Now, Tattoo You is a Stones album made up of old tracks, some dating back to 1972. The band wanted to tour, but according to Keith, there wasn't enough time to make an album and to start the tour. Plus, this was one of those points in time where Mick and Keith were not getting along.
Uh-oh.
They even argued about the album title. It was supposed to be called Just Tattoo. Mick said he had no idea how you got added, but Keith suspected that Mick put it on.
Why? A tattoo would have been fine.
Yeah, either one's fine. So their production staff went through the band's vaults to find stuff they could use. They dug up some instrumental tracks for which Mick Jagger wound up writing lyrics. Mick Taylor, the guitarist before Brian Jones, but after Ron Wood, played on Tops and Waiting on a Friend. Allegedly, his contributions on Waiting on a Friend were deleted, but Mick Taylor later demanded and received a share of the album's royalties. Other uncredited musicians on the album are Pete Townshend,
Really?
on backing vocals no less,
Oh, cool.
on the song Slave, Billy Preston, Sonny Rollins,
Wow.
Nicky Hopkins, and Ian Stewart, both on keyboards, among others.
Oh, man, I can't believe they got Billy. Wow, he's played for most major British bands, hadn't he?
Well, there was, you know how there was a point where the Beatles were thinking of making Billy Preston like a fifth member?
Yeah, did the Stones steal him?
No, he was like a freelancer.
Oh.
But at a point when Mick Taylor had left the Stones, before they were thinking of getting another guitarist, they thought, well, maybe we'll just get a keyboard player, and they were seriously looking at Billy Preston.
Wow.
Now, the thing about Tattoo You also is the Stones themselves aren't credited on the album either.
That's interesting.
In fact, Bill Wyman, Ron Wood, and Charlie Watts don't even appear on the cover. That's Mick on the front. Yes, that's really him. People look at that and think, no way.
That can't
But-
be him because he looks so different.
But you can Google the untouched photograph that we used to make the cover. It's been, how we say, maybe a little airbrushed in the forehead area.
Let me Google it.
And yes, obviously that is Keith on the back. Now, as for the inside record sleeve, one side is op art squiggles, and the other is...
Oh, yeah, it is him. I'm sorry, I looked up the photo that they used, and it's like, yeah, you add the ink to it, and that's his face. They touched up his lips a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, someone made a cover of that with the COVID mask. Anyway, back to the
So
back to
anyway,
you.
as for the inside record sleeve, I don't know if you looked at the inside of the booklet.
No, I didn't.
One side of the record sleeve was like these op art squiggles, where if you stare at it long enough, you're gonna like pass out. And the other, I love the photograph. It's a high-heeled devil's or she-devil's foot,
Okay.
along with the song titles and writing and production credits listed. But again, it doesn't tell you who played on it or who any guest musicians were. Mick was kind of a little leery about giving anyone credit, since it was like all stuff that was just sitting in the vault.
Oh.
I know. So this is kind of an album that the Stones made without really trying. So of course it got rave reviews, and it hit #1 on the album chart. Their last album to do so.
Really?
It came out in August of 1981, so yes, that means there's a 40th anniversary mega set due out in October.
Oh, wow. Are you gonna look into that?
No, I am fine with what I have. I don't need any extra stuff, but I was looking online, and it's like a massive set, like a lot of demos, a lot of stuff from the vault, a lot of live stuff, because they came out with an album after that called Still Life to document the tour, and some people said that that was an accurate title for the tour itself.
Oh, like in a bad way?
Yeah, in a bad way. Now the thing about Tattoo You is there's sort of a theme where like side 1 is all rockers, or the first 6 songs on the disc, and the last 5, or side 2, is all ballads.
Okay.
So does Tattoo You roll, or does it gather moss?
Let's find out.
Let's. Okay, so
All right. Keep in mind that most of my criticisms have nothing to do with Charlie. Charlie Watts is great on pretty much all of these, and the reason that I only bring him up every now and then is because, well, he doesn't suck. And if he had sucked, I would have pointed it out. So just know, I have no problems with him on this album whatsoever. Okay?
well, plus I think the thing is, it's like also like the albums that have been slagged, I think it's been more of like, you know, this is the best that Mick and Keith could come up with. Come on.
Okay, first track, Start Me Up. My first thought reading the opening lyrics was, okay, I can get behind this. Even though this woman is teasing Mick out of his mind, he's teasing us by refusing to be explicit, only hinting. Doing his best to expose, but not expose. But we get the idea that if you're gonna go there with Mick, you gotta go all the way and you can't leave him hanging. Because otherwise, according to him, his eyes dilate and his lips grow green, which has to be the weirdest expression of blue balls I've ever heard. The thing is, while I can tell I'm being teased, Mick does nothing for me. I think the times I get behind Mick are when he's complaining and raging against people, places, or things he doesn't like. But in terms of counting down the top 10 rockers you'd want to go to bed with, who the hell would put him on their list?
You'd be surprised.
Well, in my opinion, too arrogant to be sexy. Maybe I could get behind this song with a cover by someone I might find more appealing. We shall see. I don't know how many people cover Stone stuff, but just putting it out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a cover out there.
Okay.
For me, this is like a great opening, unforgettable Keith riff. That is the song's hook. I mean, people out there who know the song, as soon as you hear the title Start Me Up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then Charlie starts in, and we're off. And Mick's request is simple. If you start him up, he will never stop. Meanwhile, she can make a grown man cry, and towards the end, she can make a dead man come too. And I cannot believe they got away with that one on the radio. Guaranteed, it's on the fade out, yes, but still there are some stations that would crank it up just so you could hear it.
Maybe it's like if we play it softly enough, the parents won't hear.
Yep. Now this song went all the way to number 2, being denied the number 1 spot by Arthur's Theme by Christopher Cross, which is
Oh, I don't know.
when you get drunk in New York City. I know it's crazy, but it's true, and the best that you can do is fall in love, blah, 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 blah.
You think Christopher Cross is okay, though?
I like Ride Like the Wind,
Okay.
and that's as far as it goes. And it was also denied the number 1 spot by Private Eyes by Hall & Oates. Now, there was no escaping this song when it came out. It was everywhere, and it went on to become a sports anthem. The Stones would open concerts with it, obviously, and it's been on every best of theirs since it came out, because the Stones are always good about putting a best of out every 3 or 4 years, maybe. And since next year's the 60th anniversary, I'm sure they will put out a 60-song best of.
Okay.
Because when it was 50th anniversary, they put out a 50-song best of. Now, the thing is, the Stones have released a lot of singles after this, and a lot of good ones too, but Stop Me Up is probably their last truly great song. Now, I don't know if you've seen the video.
I think I did. No, I didn't see the video for this one, I don't think.
Well, as for the video, Mick does his usual spastic chicken dancing, which the first thing I thought was like, how in the hell could Adam Levine have that song Moves Like Jagger?
Oh, trust me, Todd in the Shadows had that same question, too.
Because if you had Moves Like Jagger, you would probably call rescue.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, because you think, oh my God, the poor man has some sort of condition.
Well,
I mean, if it was Moves Like James Brown, yes, I am definitely down with that.
what about moves like Joe Cocker?
Ooh, let's see, who has worse moves, Joe or Mick? That's a tough one.
Hey, audience, vote in the comments on who's worse.
Okay, so yeah, Mick is doing his usual spastic chicken dancing. Ron and Keith are having guitar fits, which are hilarious. It's kind of like whatever disease Mick has for dancing, it's kind of rubbed off on them, and they're just like nuts. And Bill and Charlie, they are in suits, but no time for Charlie, and they are as calm as anything, getting the rhythm job done, both looking bemused while doing so.
Someone has to be the mom and dad of the group with all these
They
kids.
kind of were. They were definitely the quiet guys. And Bill ended up retiring, I believe it was in 1989. He just called it a day. He just didn't want to do it anymore. He does his own thing. He's got his rhythm and blues group that he plays with live, whenever the spirit moves him. But he's just kind of laid back, happy in retirement. Unless, I know that they've tried to get him for like a 50th anniversary thing. Maybe they'll try for 60th, but I don't know.
Okay.
I just don't know, especially with Charlie being gone.
All right, next track. Hang Fire. Is this the Rolling Stones calling out Thatcher and the English Conservative Party? Because the timing checks out. I'm right?
You are good.
Okay. It also seems to be a song calling out the other generation, saying, "You kids are so lazy, you should get a job." When Mick points out, "Well, we have nowhere to work and nothing to eat." And under Thatcher, inflation rates skyrocketed and tons of Brits were unemployed. And I feel like if the Stones are trying to be political, they kind of don't want to. They have the attitude of, "Well, we didn't want to talk about this, but because things are getting so bad, we kind of have to because we can't ignore it anymore."
Yep.
So they make subtle jabs instead of making upfront statements, and also add that they're going to party while waiting around. And it doesn't really rock except for the ending. And I say, if Mick brought out his more angry side, which wouldn't be out of place here, this song might have been better.
Yeah, it's a short rocket in which, yes, the Stones got political. He said it was about how England went in decline when the money got tight.
Yeah.
And hang fire means to do nothing. Everyone's on the dole. You could marry into the upper class, but as Mick sings, marrying money is a full-time job. I don't need the aggravation. I'm a lazy slob. And as the saying goes, if you marry for money, you are going to earn every penny. And yeah, Keith said they really don't get political. He said they kind of got all that stuff out of their system in the 60s, but
When they were
every
young.
great once in a while there's just something that they can't ignore.
Also, I think most English rockers were going off on Thatcher at the time. You had Elvis Costello. Queen didn't do anything, I don't think. Who else kind of went off on Thatcher?
Oh, obviously the Clash.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And a couple of albums later, they did one called Undercover, which kind of alluded to the goings-on in Central and South America. Yeah, but like I said, it takes a lot to get them to that sort of point. Yeah. Now, as for the video, the band are pretty much doing what they did in Start Me Up, except this time Charlie is drumming whilst wearing a polo shirt. And he pulls it off quite nicely. The only other drummer I've seen do that is Chris Frantz from Talking Heads.
Really?
And for him, it was just like you'd expect it. He's just a natural polo shirt wearer. Because that was a thing when the Talking Heads came out. It was like they kind of dressed preppy.
But as Tina Weymouth said, David Byrne would never let him wear a turquoise polo shirt when they were reacting to it. We still got to see documentary now and their parody of Stop Making Sense when we rewatch Stop Making Sense, which we will do at one point.
Yes.
We have to. All right, next track. Slave. Aw, that's cute. He thinks he's in control. That's adorable. Newsflash, dude. If you really want to give someone a good time, then you will be their slave. You will do every single thing they want. And if you do, then you're going to be having a good time as well. Now, if you're in a toxic relationship where you feel like you're doing everything for them and they're not giving everything back in return, that's different. Pack up and go. As for the lyrics on their own, I think we could cut that weird little bridge where Mick attempts to rap or song speak. You could just repeat that chorus over and over and have an almost killer instrumental. Oh, and get rid of Mick caterwauling too. And all the musicians are putting everything in and it shows. The sax player, the person on keys, Keith on guitar, and Charlie Watts with the drums, especially the hi-hats. It all comes together to make a nice groove. But since this song is just short of being perfection in a really frustrating way, I won't be adding it to my playlist.
Now, when this song originally came out, it was 4 minutes and 54 seconds, and now it's 6 minutes and 34 seconds.
But it didn't feel like 6 minutes for the most part.
Which gives Mick, it doesn't, which gives Mick even more time to tell us that he does not, I looked at it differently, he doesn't want to be his baby slave, like he talks about in that rap part. He has to go down to the supermarket, he's got to hit the liquor store, and he's got to be back at 11:45, either before midnight or before noon. But because he keeps singing, don't want to be your slave, don't want to be your slave, and obviously he is, he's just powerless. Now, the guests on this one are Billy Preston on keyboards.
Makes sense why it's so good.
Pete Townshend on backing vocals. And Sonny Rollins on sax. Charlie starts it off with that very funky beat and holds it for the rest of this enjoyable jam. And Billy, Sonny, and Keith, they each get a chance to stretch out on their instruments. And I really like it as a jam, and I think Mick is hilarious. But don't wanna be your slave. Just over and over.
I'm just annoyed.
I love it. I love the song more as a jam. Like I said, I mean, those guys they can play.
Okay.
They can play.
Next track, little TNA. The Stones may talk trash and walk the walk, but they do nothing for me with this. Again. It's also interesting because I know their persona is, edgy and dirty, but apparently off stage they were kind of chill. The rumor is that it was the Beatles who were dirty bastards while appearing clean cut with their suits on stage. And the thing is, because I know that's kind of what was hinted at in Philip Norman's John biography, and because I know it's an act with the Stones, I don't buy it. I mean, sometimes performers play characters they're nothing like in real life, but that's where the fun comes in, because they can stretch their performance muscles and really go to town. And obviously, in this context, I'm not talking about Keith because Keith followed through with what he said and did. Now, if the Stones were really bad, they would go all out with dirty songs and put nothing behind such explicit statements. But what they do is try to do what a great seducer does, which is tease mercilessly until someone gives in. The problem is, they don't know how to tease at all, and it shows. So while your little rocker might be shaking her TNA for you, you're going to have to do a lot more work before you even get my pulse to race. You're going to really have to start me up, because they're not even putting the key in the ignition. It's worse. They're turning me into a broken down car.
I thought the funniest thing about this song was when you were asking about the title, what's TNA? And your mom just blurts out tits and ass nine. Oh, I didn't know you knew those words.
Well, the thing is, that's what I thought it was, but I thought, okay, because they're an English band, maybe it means something different than it does in the United States.
With a little soul, baby, according to Keith. Now, Keith wrote this, and he sings on it, and he explains it as follows. And I'm going to try not to do a Keith imitation, because we want to hear what he says. It's about every good time I've had with somebody I met for a night or two and never seen again. And also about the shit that sometimes goes down when you just sort of bump into people unknowingly and not knowing the scene you're walking in on, You pick up a chick and end up spending the night in the tank, Yes. Well, no, Keith, I don't know, but yeah, since it's you, I'm taking your word for it.
I believe
and
you.
That's interesting that you bring up that you think the Stones were like...
Well, because I remember Paul was also talking about, like, how, Mick had this arrogant persona on stage, but, like, off stage, he was kind of, like, a normal guy as far as, like, rockers go. But the thing was that I read in Philip Norman's book, it was like, the Stones had the reputation for being really dirty and edgy, but that's really, with the exception of Keith, because Keith is always the exception to the rule, that's not who they really... It was those parts of them amped up on stage, but when they got off stage, it was more turned down. And apparently the rumor is that while the Beatles were clean cut for most of the time, off stage, it was like they could get freaky as much as the next guy.
Interesting, because I know with with Mick, Brian, and Keith, though, they were kind of like that off stage, as well as on.
Well, yeah, I know
especially
about the Mars
Brian
bar incident.
Was
you don't want it. The Mars bar incident. You don't want to know. Trust me.
I think I can.
We can't say it on this
guess
show.
That one. There's a favorite quote in one of my Rolling Stone record guides that says about Brian, he was never a day at the beach in the human being department.
That makes sense.
But I mean, I think with in Keith's case, Keith is Keith. What you see is
what
definitely,
you get.
Definitely
yeah.
what you get.
I mean, who else were they going to cast as Jack Sparrow's dad in Pirates of the Caribbean? It makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Opens and closes with a trademark Keith riff. And in between, it's mayhem. Scars are healing, but the deal is squealing. The heat's raiding. Tracks are fading. Names and phone numbers are dropped. But through it all, she's his little rock and roll with, Overall, an impolite rocker. And would we expect anything less from the Stones? No.
Next track, Black Limousine. Yep, they were definitely influenced by Bo Diddley. But I think with this one, they're trying too hard. It seems like the singing voice they're trying to create in this song is a mix between the arrogant stage persona and Bo Diddley's southern twang, and it just doesn't really work. But the instruments kick ass. They understand the assignment. Keith goes all out on guitar, showing off his prowess without straying from the genre. The piano has just the right amount of honky-tonk, and whoever's playing the harmonica can really blow.
That's Mick.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. This song is almost perfect. It just needs Bo singing it instead of Mick, and I would have liked it a bit more. This is the song I've come the closest to liking, so maybe I won't download it, but if it comes on randomly one day, I won't change the station.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ron Wood gets a co-writing credit on this, which he said he had to fight to get.
Really?
And he said the lesson that he learned from this was make sure you get your writing credits while the song is being created in the studio, because you can say, hey, I just did this thing right here. I want credit for it.
So I can get my money.
Yep. It's a blues about how Mick and his baby used to ride in limousines, but those days are long gone. Music-wise, it's pretty standard as blues go. And yeah, Mick does play some harmonica, which is not bad. And it's not a bad song. I've never skipped over it when it comes on. But there's this thing about, I don't know if we could ever do this as an episode, but there's like obviously the blues was all American, but people in America didn't pay attention to it
So they went to England.
until until like the British invasion bands was the ones that discovered it, because sailors would go to the United States and bring back all these blues records, and that's what these kids grew up on, and they reintroduced the blues music to the United States.
Yeah.
But there were probably people thinking, oh my God, this stuff is so great. I can't believe these British guys invented it.
You racist.
No, they didn't. So there's always this thing of like, you've got the British blues, but are they really authentic? Because it's more of a African American.
It's almost like a hybrid, because they're
style.
taking their music and combining it with the original African American blues.
But it's tough because you can also make the case for like, well, anyone can have the blues, but then who's felt it more over the last 400 years or so?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with rap too, and why there's so many controversy about Eminem getting really popular as a rapper, because who does that genre belong to?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
And that's like with oh shoot, you bring down with everything. Oh, that was like, I used to have the Derek and the Dominoes album Layla, and then I would listen to it a lot and thought, wow, this is really good. And then I started listening to Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, John Lee Hooker, songs online. I realized, oh no, this is imitation stuff. This stuff that these guys doing, this is the real thing. I will stick with this. Thank you very much. And call me a snob or whatever, but it was just kind of like I really had my eyes opened.
and one quick thing before we go to the next track, is kind of related to that. Twitter kind of lost it a couple of days ago because some right-wing reporter was talking about how the white genre, the like rock and roll, which has traditionally been white music, was getting corrupted. And so I went, hi, I do a rock and roll podcast with my dad. He's a Chuck Berry fan, and we both know that Chuck Berry was the real king of rock and roll. As Lizzo said, black people invented rock and roll. So if you don't know anything, sit down and shut up.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Did you get any reaction?
I guess I got a lot of likes on it.
Oh, good.
Because they were like, yeah, that's right. No lies detected. All right, next track, which I could relate to a little too well this morning. Neighbors. Ah, yes. The anthem for every person who's had lousy neighbors, or even if they weren't lousy, just wanted to be left alone. Although from the music video, the Stones seem like they're the annoying ones. I think the most weird thing I saw was, well, the most lewd thing I saw was someone walking around naked, but other than that, it's just people going about their evening in an apartment building, except for the guy packing raw meat in a briefcase while wearing a bloody shirt and wiping a bloody knife.
Because you never know what your neighbors are up to.
Yeah. I also can't get over the way that Mick emits this. That's not really a bellow, but the way he pronounces the word neighbors.
Oh, I love that.
Is pretty unique and works. This song is fun, I guess. I could see people dancing to it at a loud party while pissing off their neighbors. I can think of certain neighbors I'd blast this song for so they could get the point, but I digress. And I'll tell you one thing I did. There's a dog in the neighborhood that always barks after 10 or 11 o'clock at night, so I'm like, okay, you know what? I've put up for this for too long. I'm going to mess with this dog. So I went on YouTube, and I Googled 101 Dalmatians Twilight Bark scene, and I played it just loud enough where the neighbors couldn't hear it, but the dog did. Dog started barking. I played Pongo barking. Neighbor's dog stopped barking.
Ooh, now you know what to do.
Yep.
Obviously, Pongo was the alpha male.
Neighbors, try that. Well, not my neighbors, but if you have people where it's like they have an annoying dog, try that. It works.
Now, Mick wrote this for Keith, who, along with his wife Patty Hansen, was kicked out of a New York City apartment for playing his music too loud.
Is that why he's in Connecticut now?
That could be, yep. He's got his own house out there. He can just blast as loudly as he wants.
Every time we go to Deanna's house and we walk around the neighborhood, we're like,
does Keith live
looking
here?
around, does Keith live here? I don't know.
I love how the song starts off and how Charlie's snare is really brought out to the front. And Mick's pissed off at all of his neighbors. They're nose bags, they're getting in all his business. He just wants to be left alone. And love the line, do unto neighbors what you do to yourself. And this song kind of reminds me of almost like a sequel to Get Off My Cloud from back in the 66, 67 maybe, where he's got the same thing, like, hey, I live on the 99th floor of an apartment in my block, and these people are just still bothering me. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I want to be alone, mind your own business.
I want to sleep.
And yeah, I love this song. It cracks me up, especially where Mick Grouse is about sax playing neighbors, and then later Sonny Rollins comes in and tears it up on his sax.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the video is reminiscent of the movie Rear Window with Jimmy Stewart.
And Grace Kelly? I still haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you gotta watch it.
I want to, yeah.
With something going on in each apartment. And Charlie, in this video, is hilariously courteous as he has a cloth draped over his snare in an effort to dampen the noise so as not to waken his neighbors.
Oh, good for him.
Oh, that just cracks me up.
Probably the only considerate one. All right, next, Worried About You. Oh, I hate his falsetto. I just do. I think Mick's voice works better in his naturally lower register because the sound quality of his falsetto just rubs me the wrong way. Thank God he didn't do it throughout the whole song, but the times he did were hard to sit through. And it's such a weird tone to strike for a song about adultery. Honestly, if I wasn't listening to this for a podcast, I would have skipped this song before the first minute was even over. But nope, I had to sit through Mick Jagger. Thanks a lot. The things I do for you, audience.
This was recorded back in 1975 with Wayne Perkins on guitar. He was a contender for replacing Mick Taylor on guitar before the band decided on Ron Wood. And sometimes I think they picked Ron because he looks like he could be Keith's long-lost brother.
He kind of does.
Anyway, that's Mick on electric piano and falsetto. And this song reminds me of Fool to Cry, which was also recorded in 75. It kind of almost sounds similar. Someone could do a mashup with them, no problem. So Mick's wondering why his girl does these things to him, but he's also staying out late, having fun. She's not the only one. Could it be a revenge move on his part? Or maybe it's her part. I don't know. Because he also says someday he'll find himself a girl. So obviously it's not her, but he's worried about her. But why? Is he worried she's going to stalk him? Or worse?
I don't know.
This is one of those songs, one of many in the music world where if you don't pay attention to the lyrics too closely, it works.
Okay, before we go on to the next track, I have a question since you brought up Ron Wood and Keith kind of looking alike. You know that Sesame Street parody of,
The Cobblestones?
Yeah, the Cobblestones with Cooperation.
Yeah.
Was there a Ron Wood puppet or was he not there at the time?
Oh, wow.
Because the one that they got to... Yeah.
It depends what year they did that, song, because the Keith one definitely looks like Keith, minus the cigarette, but they do give him like the cigarette lip. Yeah,
which if you haven't seen the Cobblestones Cooperation, Google it. It's a great Rolling Stones parody. All right, next track. Tops. Nice opening. Conveys a sense of danger with good drumming and guitar and seduction, and then Mr. Fish Lips comes in and ruins the whole thing. Listen, if you expect me to give everything to you so you can put me on a pedestal, you're going to have to do a lot better than that. Don't take me to the top. I'm fine right here on the ground. I can also tell when you call me pretty, it's just to demean me and belittle me, so screw you, man. I just want to punch you in the face. I hate you so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
I kind of look at this song as a warning, like Mick sings that every man has to come on. I'll make you a star. Well, if it's a Hollywood agent, I guess. So it starts off with Mick. It seems to start off with him making the warning, but then it turns into him like feeding her all the come on lines. And they're just like so... I mean, maybe it's me, but I think you'd really have to be naive to fall for his shtick.
Yeah, you would.
It's like, you really want to be a star that badly.
So badly you'll sleep with Mick.
My advice, get it in writing.
Yep.
And more falsetto. It's an okay song. The thing about this album is, like, I kind of wish they had intermixed the ballads with the rockers.
Okay. Next track, Heaven. Ew, I don't want Mick smelling me. No. For me, heaven is a place where he's as far away as possible. I like the vibe they're going for. Two people high on hormones while the mood becomes sexier and sexier. And I have to say, Charlie Watts' drumming really stands out here because as the instruments create that bass sound, he remains constant. And adding the brush on the cymbals is a nice touch because it creates a gentle tone coupled with the guitar. But someone just needs to get Mick to stop. Just stop. Someone should have stopped him.
Stop him up?
Yeah. stop him up and clamp him down.
Well, I love this song. I love the arrangement. The vocal swirls are whatever effect you want to call it when Mick's singing. It's kind of like they're just kind of waving around. Very atmospheric. Nothing will harm you. No one will stand in your way. But there's also an undercurrent of something ominous going on. I can't quite put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have to say about that song.
Okay, next track. No use in crying. Mick wants me to stay away from him? Sign me up! Don't come back! Great, I can't miss you if you won't leave. I do want to ask a question, though. Does Charlie Watts use the hi-hats a lot? Like in all of his songs that he drums on?
Well, everyone kind of uses those. Are the ones that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But does he make a point of using them?
I mean, every drummer does. I mean, it's like a constant thing. It could just be that with the production that they've brought out more into the front, to the foreground, instead of just kind of blending in with the rest of the kit. That's a possibility. Because
he uses them subtly in a couple of songs, and it sounds nice. That's the only thing I have to say about this song. Only I'm not crying. I'm happy because it's over.
There ain't no use. It's just not going to work. Stay away from me. I am not the one. And it's kind of like almost like a little nasty song. And it kind of reminds me of an earlier song of theirs, No Expectations, from Beggar's Banquet, way back in 1968. And again, Mick's not coming back, but there's not the sheen of nastiness that permeates No Use in Crying. I mean, in both songs, he's just like, yeah, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. But I look at both these songs, they could be addressed to groupies, especially No Expectations, where it's just like, I've got no expectations of ever coming this way again.
Okay. All right, final track, Waiting on a Friend. My first note, I hate that man. He's just so stupid. I was up to here with Nick at this point. All right, so my question is this supposed to be the Stones' version of standing on the corner watching all the girls go by with the music video and the opening verse?
I don't believe so.
Okay, because Mick looks more like a pervert than Dean Martin. I do like the message of this one, because there are times where we just need a friend to hang out with who will listen to us and be with us. But I don't want that friend to be Mick. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is how much I hate this man. I'd rather hang out with Keith, because while I'd be terrified out of my mind, I know I'd have fun. And as for Mick's friend, I hope she ghosts him.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut out this other line I was going to say about Mick in the closing, because it's just too mean. I'll tell you it after we stop recording, because I can't say this.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, now I'm going to drop a revelation on you.
Mm-hmm.
This is your Nana's favorite Stones song.
I didn't know Nana even liked the Stones.
Why is it her favorite song?
Yeah.
You'd have to ask her. I have no idea why.
Okay.
Maybe it's because it's nice, Mick.
Okay, that could do it.
He don't need no horror boost. He's just waiting on a friend.
Nana likes rock, though, doesn't she? I mean, she likes, who's the guy? That's the soccer player.
Rod Stewart.
Yeah, she likes Rod Stewart.
Yeah, she's a big Rod Stewart fan.
And she also likes not really rock, but Tom Jones.
Well, it's more pop.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think of who else in terms of rock she likes.
She's more pop.
Okay.
Definitely has a lot of Neil Diamond.
Except for Ron.
Except for Ron?
No, I think I got the name wrong.
You mean Rod.
Rod.
God. You're trying.
I'm trying so hard.
Well, look at it this way. Ron Wood and Rod Stewart were both in the Faces, so, you know.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Anyway.
So that's your out. Okay, so it's a nice arrangement to go with Nice Mick. And Keith kicks it off with yet another unforgettable riff. He's just so good with that. He's just got like so many of them. The guy is a master. Now, Charlie's in there somewhere drumming because a lot of Latin American percussion dominates this song, which gives it a nice kind of sway. Yeah. And Sonny Rollins once again chips in with a nice sax solo. Now, in the video, Mick and his hat are waiting at St. Mark's Place, which was used on the cover of Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti album. Him and his hat are waiting for Keith to show up, who eventually does and lip syncs when he feels like it.
Because he's Keith.
He is. and they go to a bar, and who's there but Ron, Bill, and Charlie. Ron joins in with the lip syncing, and it looks like Charlie's nudging Bill like, do you believe these wankers?
Yeah, I could see him doing that. Maybe he wouldn't say the word wankers, though, because he's classy.
Well, what's a classy yobs?
Maybe.
Nutters?
UK listeners, what's the classy version of the word wanker? I'll ask Ned later. That's my UK friends.
Okay. And so there you have it. I think it's a solid album made up of spare parts, and how many bands can pull off a feat like that?
Okay, overall, I like all of the Stones but Mick. If he wasn't there
Hey,
singing...
4 out of 5, you're 80%. They get a B.
Yeah, they get a B. If he wasn't there singing, I'd enjoy this a whole heck of a lot more. Because the music on this album is great, but his voice wrecks the whole vibe. I know the Stones fans are going to come at me, but I don't care. You're lucky I deleted that one comment I made, or you would have gotten more mad. I'll tell Dad when it's over.
Well, as Keith said one time when someone asked him, why don't you sing more songs? And Keith said, well, if I sing all the songs, what's he going to do?
Yeah, exactly. So, Keith, you're fine. Charlie Watts, you're a great drummer, rest in peace. Ron Wood, you seem okay. And all the musicians kick ass. But if it wasn't for that, man, I'd like this album a lot more. And I can guarantee you that if I bought a poster from this album, it would be the back cover with Keith, because he looks cool, unlike some people. So listen to this album for the other members and the musicians, not the obnoxious lead.
Wow.
Yeah.
All I have to say is rest in peace, Charlie.
Rest in peace.
And I kind of hope that the rest of the Stones will call it a day after this tour.
I think they have to.
Do some sort of like, okay, next year is 60 years. Do some sort of, you want to do some sort of 60th anniversary tribute. That's fine.
What are they, in their 70s or 80s at this point?
They're still on the right side of 80, but they are getting really
close.
Really close. I mean, I know Bill, yeah, he's retired, but he's the oldest one. I want to say he's like 82. Charlie made it to 80. And the rest of them are not that far behind. I think Ron might be the youngest out of the three of them left.
The thing is, with us saying that they should retire by now, it's nothing to do with ageism, because they've been doing it for so long. It's just that without Charlie, it's like, what's the point? Yeah, exactly.
Or just call yourself something else.
Exactly. The Mossy Rocks.
Oh, jeez.
And on that note, as always, thank you for listening to another installment of My Dad Listens to This. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Follow me on social media to get all the episodes. And if you're friends with my dad, just say what episode you want to listen to, and he will email it directly to your inbox. Again, thank you for listening to another installment of My Dad Listens to This. And I think the best way to conclude this is, rest in peace, Charlie Watts. You were a great drummer. Good night.